if you watched the last video, we went over WWE predictions, and today we're going to do the same thing, but we're doing AEW today. We have a few different topics because they don't really have pay-per-views that are like stipulation-type matches. So kind of just got a little few categories that we're going to go over, and just give our predictions. We're going to start off with 5 people we want to see win champions, be any champion, but who are your 5?
So I don't have, champion specific to these people, so I'm just going to name the people in general. But as Darby Allin, just someone who, he could win a world title before the year's over, and I wouldn't be too surprised. But definitely by the end of 2025, he will be a world champion, I'll say. But then up next, I have Chris Statlander. Obviously, she already has a history with the TBS title, so potentially she could win that back. So that'd be really cool for her. Then the tag titles, I have the Outrunners. Just there's someone who's kind of like a fan favorite right now. Could see a big feud with them and FTR coming into play at some point. Zack Sabre Jr. Could also be someone to win just some kind of gold. Obviously, he won the G1 Climax in this year, so that could kind of elevate him to the AEW roster to win a world title and play both companies, kind of. And then last but not least, I have Jay White. Just one of my favorites, just a fan favorite pick for myself. But yeah, just kind of threw that one in there.
Yeah. For me, I have Bobby Lashley. Obviously, when he came in, it's a huge deal. I think they've done a really good job with making sure everybody's still interested in him and, making sure you want to see what's next for him. And I think he can be an easy, great world champion for just any champion, really. My next one is Willow. I think she has kind of done her thing with the TBS champion. I'd like to see her go for the world champion. I know she already had a match with Mariah, but I would just want to see her with that champion. Next up, Kyle Fletcher, a guy who's had a phenomenal late half of 2024. And I think going into 2025, that's not going to change for him. He's just kind of one of the guys that is kind of up next for AEW. And then after that, Adam Page. Now, this is another one that could happen before 2024 is over. But I just think he's a fan favorite. I want to see him win the champion finally or again. And then my last one, similar to you, also have a tag team, and that's MXM. Similar as well, just a fan favorite tag team that I don't know if they will translate for world championship material, but can at least be like a good contender. I personally think they could win the world champions. Next up, though, let's do 5 breakout stars for 2025 for AEW.
Yeah, so for this one, I have someone who's young in AEW right now and has been getting better. We've seen her go to Stardom, and she's just training to get better. That's Anna Jay. She also just had a title match also versus Mercedes Moné. So I could definitely see her kind of elevating to reach some sort of title, maybe versus Mercedes or something in the future again. But then next I have Queen Aminata, someone who we haven't seen a lot of at all, but we have seen a backstage segment between the two where Mercedes kind of disrespected her a little bit. So there's potential there with something. And she's someone who's just really strong, and she could be really good for the women's division. I'm not sure why she's not booked more already, to be honest. But up next, I have Brody King, someone who I think we all kind of want to see the House of Black not split up necessarily, but kind of have little singles runs here and there. They can still do their trios matches, but it'd be cool to see them with singles gold as well. And I think Brody King would probably be the best person to send out to win that gold.
Yeah.
And then we have Wheeler Yuta, someone who I think is just a really cool storyline going on with him and Jon Moxley. Obviously, he's heel right now, but at any moment I can see him turning face again, being that he's so close with Bryan Danielson, and he was an original BCC member with them. So for them to turn on him, on Bryan Danielson, I'm sure it was kind of like a shock to him, I'm sure, as we've seen when they did it. But yeah, could definitely see a really cool run for him coming after he turns face. And last but not least, Harley Cameron. We've seen a lot of cool stuff from her. She's kind of like the Chelsea Green of AEW in a way. She's hilarious. She works really good in the ring, and I think just think she's great, and she should potentially have some sort of breakout run. Maybe in a women's Continental Classic type of thing would be cool.
Yeah. For me, I'm going to start off with Nick Wayne, a really young guy that I think AEW has a lot of high hopes for, and I think he could be similar to Kyle Fletcher, where he is just another next up type of guy. And I think in 2025, if they kind of want to break him apart from Christian finally, let him do his own thing, have a Continental Classic run, and just let him do his thing, build his solo wins, and just continuously just get his name more value, because I think he definitely has the talent to do so. Next up, I have Bandito, somebody who we did just see return on Final Battle. However, I think he'll still be on AEW hopefully, and hopefully he gets a lot of big wins and just continues to show off how good he is. And yeah, next up, another guy is Brian Keefe. I know right now he's with Chris Jericho, so similar to Nick Wayne, just kind of separate them for a little while, let them build their name up, and kind of go on a little singles run, maybe for the international title. Would probably have to be a good start. And then for my next up, I have Sky Blue. She did have a pretty good end of 2023 and early 2024. However, got injured. I forget about when, but she's been out for quite a while now, unfortunately. And I think in 2025 she can rebuild momentum and have another breakout year, even exceeding her last big run. And then my next person, somebody who just returned, is Julia Hart. She obviously is somebody who had a big 2023, 2024. It's similar to Sky Blue, got injured, was out for a little while. Now she's back. I think she's set up for something pretty big. I think they have a lot of, they're not going to give these really good, produce vignettes and stuff like that for her to do nothing. There's going to be something there for her at the end of whatever this run is. But yeah, next up, let's do 5 free agents we think AEW will sign.
So I have the first person in Speedball, Mike Bailey. He's already somewhat rumored to come. He could show up before the end of the year is over, to be honest. But I will throw him in there, as well as someone who you mentioned in your WWE list, with Josh Alexander. I think he'd be just a great pickup for them. Just somewhere for him to, like you said in the WWE video, but kind of in his career on a high note in one of the big companies, one of the big TV companies.
Mm-hmm.
And then as well as that, I have Zack Sabre Jr. I mentioned him for winning a title, so for them to sign him, it'd make more sense as well. And then I have someone who just lost versus Chris Jericho at Final Battle, and that is Matt Cardona. That looks a little less likely after losing here, but obviously there's definitely a good chance that could happen because Cardona is just that good. And then last but not least, someone who's probably going to be there anyway, but Nina Shirakawa. We've seen her have great feuds with Toni Storm, now with Mariah May, and I think she would just be a great addition to the roster.
Yeah. For me, I have Jake Something, a guy that we were actually able to see at a TNA taping not too long ago. He's somebody who I think has all the potential in the world to be a top heel, or just, I don't know what his face work looks like. I haven't been able to see that just yet. But I know as a heel, he looks very believable to be a big, strong guy. Next up is Tegan Nox, somebody who WWE released not too long ago. I'd like to see her in AEW. I think AEW could use a woman's name like Tegan Nox. I don't know how much people are going to be like, oh, that's the girl from WWE, obviously, but she's very talented. I think she can make a big impact for them. Another woman is Indy Hartwell. I just think, again, similar, she should be in a big company. She deserves to have, a big name in a big company, so I think AEW would be a perfect spot for her. Another woman, I don't know what her contract status is, but I think she would fit the AEW mold a little bit better, and that's Blair Davenport. I think she just... I don't know. I think in WWE she doesn't have like a high ceiling, whereas in AEW I think that ceiling is a little bit higher. In just the terms of just getting a world champion or any type of belt. And then my last one is Megan Bayne, another woman who I just think can be a very dominant force. AEW doesn't have like a big woman who is kind of similar to Nia Jax, where she's very dominant. It's hard to get a win, but when you do get the win over, it's very rewarding, and she can be a big heel, which is really good for him. But yeah, next up though, let's do our 5 main events we expect to see in 2025.
Yeah, so these are our main events that we just want to see on just like any pay-per-view in general, basically just kind of dream matches in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But for my first one, I have something we just seen, but not in the setting that I want to see it in, and that is Darby Allin versus Will Ospreay. I think that match deserves a pay-per-view match, main event 100%. Obviously, their first match they just had was amazing. One of the better matches they've had on TV Dynamite in general.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be amazing to see them kind of go all out and to see what Darby Allin kind of does to himself and what Will Ospreay does to Darby. And then up next, I have Mercedes Moné versus TNA talent, and that is Masha Slamovich. We got to see her once again at that TNA live taping. She's amazing. She's always been amazing as long as we've watched her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she'll just be great to just kind of be booked around, even in NXT and AEW and Ring of Honor, even in all these places. I think she's amazing. Then for my third one, I have Jon Moxley versus Okada. I believe we have seen this match in the past once before in New Japan. However, I want, the current version of them with the current Okada and Death Riders Moxley versus All Elite Okada. I think that could be a really cool story they tell there when the Bucks do finally come back and everything. And yeah, I think that would just be an amazing match to see what they can do with each other. And then I'm going to go with another Darby match here, and that is Darby versus Swerve Strickland. I'm sure at some point they've kind of linked up in the past and had a match, but now with this current version of Swerve Strickland that we have, where it's just this main eventer, just undeniable, I think that would be really cool with a Darby, especially with what Darby is able to do in the ring and what Swerve has proven himself to be able to do in the ring. That'd be amazing. And for my last one, it's kind of a simple one. That's Jay White versus Takeshita. Just two really good wrestlers. Put them in the ring and just let some magic happen.
For me, similar to your last one, Kenny Omega and Okada. It's a match that I know AEW probably wants to do really bad, but unfortunately things have never lined up. But I think once Kenny's back, that's probably something we can see at possibly an All-In. It's that, because no matter what, it's going to be a phenomenal match. It's just how good can they really go? What more new stuff can they possibly bring out? Next up, I have Bobby Lashley versus Darby. I just want to see Bobby Lashley throw Darby around, just break his back over the ring, throw him all the way over. Just use him as a little ragdoll, basically. Next up, also a Mercedes Moné match, but this one is Toni Storm. Just two of the biggest women's names probably in AEW right now. I think it's just a perfect match for them. Next up is Adam Page versus Kyle Fletcher. Similar to another one where just two guys who are phenomenal in the ring, put them together, it's probably going to be good. And then another one is Will Ospreay versus Jon Moxley. They have had a match before, but not in AEW yet. And I think that's just, especially with how heel Moxley is right now and how babyface Ospreay is, I think it's the perfect two counterparts to one another. And then last up, let's finish it off with 5 heel or face turns we want to see in 2025.
So I've kind of pitched this ever since I started watching AEW, just because I think it'll be really cool once it eventually does happen, and that is Darby Allin turning heel. I think he just has a character for a heel. Obviously, he's been a face the entire time he's been in AEW, but I think that turn will be just really big for AEW. I think it could be a really big thing depending on how they play it out. Potentially him with like a House of Black or something could be really cool. And then another one is Mercedes Moné. Obviously, she came back as a heel, which is kind of questionable for me at least. Obviously, as someone who likes Mercedes, I want to cheer her more and do all that kind of stuff. But they brought her back as heel, and I think a face turn could kind of change things around for her and kind of put more opponents on her table as well. Now that she doesn't have to face strictly face opponents, she could kind of go both sides as a babyface. But up next, I have Brody King. I mentioned him just getting a big push this year, having a breakout year. And this is just kind of part of that, I think, just turning face. Obviously, House of Black, they're kind of not face, not heel, but they are heel. It's kind of like a weird thing with them. But in particular with Brody King, he is just one of the ones that kind of have the more face kind of qualities to him, especially with Darby Allin in particular. And then I also have Edge and Adam Copeland and Christian. Obviously, Christian's already heel, but I have Adam Copeland turning heel with them, becoming this tag team. There's so many cool matches you could do, like with FTR and the Bucks with them. And there's just so much cool matches you could do to kind of finish that Edge and Christian team chapter off. You know what I mean? And then last but not least, I kind of mentioned it earlier with the breakouts, and that is Wheeler Yuta. I think he could get a really cool face push. And become some sort of champion. Maybe he's the one that defeats Moxley. I don't necessarily see that happening right now, but it could definitely happen at some point. And I think Wheeler Yuta face push could be perfect for him after doing this Death Riders kind of thing they're doing currently.
Yeah. For me, I had Adam Cole turning to a heel. I just think that we've kind of seen, I'm going to say everything for face Adam Cole, but I think he kind of works better as a heel. So I just think that's just perfect for him to kind of rejuvenate. I know a lot of people might not be the highest on Adam Cole right now, so I think this might be a good way just to bring him back up. Another person is Adam Page going back to a face. I know he's similar like Drew McIntyre, where he wasn't a real heel or wasn't a real face. He just did heel things to a somewhat face. but he's kind of justified in some of his actions, even though he did burn down a house. But yeah, I think he's a very beloved guy, and he's very easy to like. Next up, though, Shelton Benjamin going to face. Obviously, he's one of the fan favorites and a guy who everyone wants to see succeed in what is probably one of his last real runs in professional wrestling. So, yeah, I think him as a face, everybody's going to want to cheer him anyway. And then next up, Joey Hart as a face. We haven't really seen that too much, at least since she's kind of elevated everything that she's done in the past few years. So I think that'd just be a perfect fit because I think they kind of need some good faces on the women's side right now. Yeah. And then the last up, I know I've mentioned him as one of the best baby faces right now, but I want to see him go heel, and as Will Ospreay. I think he needs to be a real dickhead and just say a lot of nasty things, and that just be great, just great heat from the crowd, and I think he'll do a perfect job of that. But yeah, that's kind of all of the predictions we're going to give today for AEW in 2025. Let us know your predictions down in the comments below, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.